Department of Wildlife License Simplification Strategy Update. Game Division Administrator Brian Wakeling for possible action. The department has conducted substantial data analysis and public input since the effort to simplify hunting and angling license structures was initiated just over 1 year ago. The department will provide an overview of the information obtained to date, along with suggestions for bundled privileges and fees. The Commission may vote to support the department's license structure proposal. Mr. Wakeling.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Brian Wakeling, I'm the Division Administrator for the Game Division. Did want to go through a short slide presentation here, kind of highlighting once again the overview of what we hope is a process by which we can simplify our license structures, provide an awful lot more value to our customers, and at the same time try to keep everything as revenue neutral as we possibly can. So as I mentioned at the October meeting, we did share this information. We did transmit this as a bill draft. But what we want to share with you today, and as we have shared it with you previously, what we want to share are the considerations that the department largely developed as we went through this. So none of the information that I'm sharing is specific to the any particular bill draft. We did ask for some clarification, and this is verbatim the information that we were provided by the Budget Office. We did seek further clarification following the October Commission meeting, and we were provided some guidance that we could disclose a little additional information. The Commission memo that went out and should have been available for each of the cabs to look at has a one-page summary associated with it that largely should elucidate a lot of the questions that people might have. And so what I want to do here is go through this again real briefly, just so everyone is clear what process we use, what we're talking about. This is a process that's been going on for a little over a year now. We initiated this in about September of last year. We went through essentially a three-pronged approach to trying to assess our overall license structure, looking at a comparative analysis, which we conducted last fall, qualitative during the winter, and then as we got into the spring, that's when we did the actual quantitative analysis. We did not initiate the financial analysis to actually come up with the fees that we suggest as part of our consideration package until July of this year, and so that was after we had gone through all of the other efforts before that. This is at least the fifth time that we've had this before the Commission as a briefing. Ultimately, the presentation I'm sharing with you is almost identical to what you've seen for 3 times. We do really want the Commission's endorsement of this as we move forward, and that's what we're requesting today. We've also shared this with virtually the exact same thing at the town hall meetings. Excuse me. There is just a slight difference in the, couple of slides have been changed just a little bit, but as I mentioned, we're looking for your support. So our whole intent as we went through this was to come up with a way to make it easier. And as we started, struggling with the concept, the term that we were using, we used fee simplification, we used license simplification. In some cases, this may not simplify every single aspect of what we were doing. We focused on licenses. We did not address application fees. We did not address tag fees. But what we wanted to do ultimately was deliver value. Could we make this better for our customer? Could we in some way reduce the number of errors that they would make, and could we make it easier for them to engage? I mentioned that we wanted to try to keep this revenue neutral. It's really difficult to model revenue neutrality. And the chance and some of the challenges associated with it deal with if you do create a better value, you're probably going to see people's behavior change in the manner in which they purchase or engage in acquiring licenses. So what we assumed as we went through this is if we changed a license, we did not expect the license purchase to change in any way. And so what we looked at was basically looked at our 2016 purchases. If we looked at those, the revenue generated from all the licenses we're discussing, just under $7 million. If people behaved identical in the year following the adoption of this fee structure that we're considering, what we would see is about $15,000 more revenue, which is less than 0.2% difference in our overall budget. One of the things I did not mention before, I've added to this presentation. One of the questions that often comes up is, what about the tag funds or the stamp funds that are behind this? And essentially what our intent would be to distribute those fees proportionate to what it has been over the last 6 or 7 years. And so we looked at a long-term approach at it. What has it been? And so our consideration would be, if the trout stamp has been receiving a certain amount and the duck stamp has been receiving a certain proportion, we would hold that proportion constant. And so we would protect those stamp funds. Those fees would still go into those accounts, and they would be the decisions on how that money was dispersed would still be consistent with the way it is today. So then, real quickly, looking at our current structure, we've got about 28 different licenses. And that's before we get into the tags. If we just look at our fees and licenses and stamps. And comparing ourselves with the other states around us, and we also wanted to include Colorado. When you start looking at how long it has been since Nevada has even really addressed their license structure, it's been quite a long time, and virtually every state around us, with the exception of Idaho, has made a change to their license structure within the last 3 years. One of the other advantages to some of these changes is if we can increase the number of licenses that are purchased, and I'll talk about some of those strategies here in a little bit, we actually have access to a greater proportion of the pie that's available through our federal grants, both the Dingell-Johnson and the Pittman-Robertson grants that we fund most of our fisheries and terrestrial wildlife work. So we initiated our quantitative analysis using an outside contractor, Chase & Chase Incorporated. Ultimately, Lauren Chase conducted many of these analyses. They worked with, looked at the existing data for comparative data. For qualitative analysis, what they did is they pulled together 6 different focus groups. And this was 8 to 10 license holders in each of 6 cities. What this data does, what you get from that kind of an assessment is not a proportional response. So in other words, if 6 of the 10 like something, that doesn't mean 60% of the public like it. But what it does give you a sense of is what the range of issues, what the range of perspectives are across the state of Nevada. And so by going to the 6 different cities, trying to look at the range of it, our objective was to try and get an idea of the range of perspectives there were concerning our current license structure. We use that data along with data from comments we've received at a variety of public inputs, things we'd heard from the cabs over the years. And what we did was we crafted a series of specific questions. And those questions were designed to gauge the proportion, the strength. This was the real qualitative. How many of the licensed anglers and hunters in Nevada, how many of them felt a particular way? And this was a statistically valid sampling. It gives us a sense, a pretty good sense of the proportion and the strength of that perception on a variety of ideas. What we heard based on all of this data is that if we provided a license that had all of the relative stamps, all the relative privileges, limiting the number of special ones and combining all those licenses with similar, that this would be a higher value to our customers. So this is the fairly detailed analysis, and again, this financial information wasn't cranked until we got into July of this year. And what we wanted to do was look at a couple of different aspects here, and what I'll do is go through in fairly detail how we came up with the resident hunting, and then I'll try and get through the others a little bit quicker, just recognizing that we have spent a little bit of time trying to do a lot of the same analysis. So oftentimes, comments we got back from the focus groups were, hey, you're nickel and diming us. One of the comments was a hunting license is like a truck without wheels. I can't do anything with it until I go do something else. If I got a hunting license, I can't even hunt anything but rabbits. I can't hunt quail. I can't do anything unless I get something else. So we looked at combining all of these various licenses and stamps. And right now, if you were to buy one, it's $33. But then you've got an upland game stamp, that's $10. You got a state duck stamp, that's $10. HIP is free. The other thing that I have to point out is we don't have access to the federal stamp. We can't do anything with it, and so it's outside of this process. But if a hunter goes out and buys one of these, he's going to spend $53 by the time he's got all the license and tags and all the license and stamps rolled together. Not every hunter does that. Some hunters choose, they only buy the license so they can go put in for big game. Others will only hunt upland game. And so what we looked at with this whole number is if we rounded it off, came up with a pretty close number, $40 looked like a pretty good number, and currently in 2016, the average hunter spent $37.83 to go hunting. That's what the average guy spent. There were people that spent more. If you buy an upland stamp, you already spend more than that. We looked at non-resident hunting, and this is one that what we did, and I'm going to address it more when I get to the non-resident combination license, but this is one of the strategies we can use to try and increase our access to our federal share of the grant dollars. Resident fishing, the same analysis we went through here. No extra fees for stamp, second rod, special use, and if we did this, we could, do it for $40. The average angler spent just under $40. In fact, just like 26 cents under $40 last year when they purchased their stuff to go fishing. So a one-day license, that's something we've already got. We're not recommending any change to that structure. That would remain the same. You could buy as many additional days as you want for $3. Non-resident fishing, right now the average angler spends $78.06. We're suggesting that they'd be $80. A one-day fishing license, this is something again that already exists, and we're not recommending any change to that structure. Currently, we've also got a Boundary Waters fishing license, and we really think that this is a fishing license that can be pretty competitive in some instances. If a non-resident chooses to fish just in the lakes around the state, Tahoe, Meade, they could buy just a $30 license. We're recommending that go up from $149 for $1 to make it a round number. You know, even that's even cheaper to hunt, or rather to fish Lake Mead than if you were to buy a non-resident license in Arizona. It's a good quality, a good advantage. Looking at a combo, the kind of the package that puts hunting and fishing together, we would have no extra fees for virtually any of the stamps that go along with this. Most of the people that I know that buy a combination license, you know, they spend you know, the $54 for the license. They'll typically buy an upland game stamp. They'll typically buy a trout stamp, and you're at $74. We're recommending $75. $72.69 is what the average individual that bought a combination license spent last year. Now, this is where we start to talk about non-resident hunting a little bit. Our considerations would be that we would no longer offer a non-resident hunting license. If someone chose to go hunting in Nevada and they came from another state, what we would encourage them to do, of course, is to buy a non-resident package. A combination license. What this would be, currently our price is $199 for that, but we're recommending the price be reduced to $155. What that would allow us to do is charge $13 more for people that want to go hunting, and it would be basically then, what is that, about $53 less than if you were to be buying a combination license. The key here is that we've got over 18,000 people buying hunting licenses who are non-residents, and we have less than 408 last year, who bought a combination license. So what this would do is give us the opportunity to take advantage of this combination. We would probably be able to offset some of the costs that we're probably going to see reductions in some of the next slides. We've also, rather than having a one-day hunting license for non-residents, we are also suggesting we consider a non-resident, one-day non-resident combo license, bumping it $2 from 21 to 23, and then $8 for each consecutive day. No change there. We're also recommending that we consider a youth package. And what that youth package would look like, it would be the same for residents and non-residents. It would be, you wouldn't have a hunting license or a fishing license. You'd have a combo license, so they'd be eligible to hunt and fish for $15. This again allows us to certify, just as with the non-resident hunter, this allows us to certify more licenses being sold for hunting and more licenses being sold for fishing. And so that gives us access to a greater proportion of the pie off of our federal grant. We're also recommending a consideration for what we're calling an elite package, and what this would be is a lot of those smaller, everything from a senior license, disabled license, military, Native American, any of these, rolling them all into a single package so there's not so many confusing ones if you're eligible for that. And then again, this would be a $15 fee. So some of those licenses currently are free, but this would be a nominal fee. The stamps are not free. By charging $1 or more, $15 in this case, for those licenses, what that allows us to do is credit those licenses for that federal excise tax. And so this would still be less than if someone were to buy one of those licenses and have to buy the stamps associated with that. As I said, we took this out to 5 different public meetings. We had 14 in Elko, 4 in Elko, 2 in Ely, 9 in Reno, 2 in Fallon, and 9 in Vegas. The only negative pieces of feedback that we received, one thing I failed to elaborate on is all of these would be good 365 days from the date of purchase. That was something that Lauren Chase found was very favorable to the public when he did his work. He said the only thing we have to do is make sure you can't game the system. You can't buy one license one year and apply for 2 separate years. Utah advertises that, actually encourages non-residents to do that. It's not something that Arizona did when Arizona adopted it. Basically, there's a stopgap that you'd have to have a license the last day of the draw, or the final date of the draw. So if we were to do that, and then also being able to follow up and make sure that there's some way to ensure that an individual who drew a tag would have a license at the same time. Also, one comment we received on the Native American licenses being free, thought there might be some concern regarding that. When we went ahead and ran this out, we showed the price points. The price points have been well supported by the public that we've spoken with. The feedback that I've received personally, I call in this case, I refer to the hunters and anglers as the critical stakeholders. In this case, they're critical because they're influenced the most by we're changing. So in other words, this is not going to change any expense to someone who just does wildlife watching. There will be no change in the world according to that, based on what they're going to see, what they're going to experience. Only the hunters and anglers who are actually paying license and angling fees, they're going to still be influenced it. Even if we increase the number of hunters and anglers that buy licenses, we still regulate the harvest. That's why we still come before you with seasons and quotas, and so there will be no change to that. And at that point, we have, if you've got any questions, I'd certainly be willing to try to answer those. We would truly appreciate the Commission's support.
Questions from the Commission for Mr. Wakeling? Commissioner Valentine.
Mr. Wakeling, when Arizona went to the non-resident combination and up their fee, was there a major pushback from non-residents applying?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Valentine, I'm not aware of any substantive pushback on that. There's some folks that like to, laugh about, perhaps being drawn for a Unit 9 elk tag and having to buy a combination license to go there, and there isn't even a fishable body of water in Unit 9 in Arizona. So there's some chatter, I might say, but there hasn't been any substantive pushback that I'm aware of.
Further questions? Commissioner Drew?
Yeah, Brian, just to you and department staff, the last time we heard this in Vegas, I had a little bit of heartburn about the PowerPoint not being provided to the county advisory boards, and just wanted to thank you and staff for not only doing that, but going above and beyond and also providing the table so that the county advisory boards understood what was going on. And I appreciate the cabs who provided feedback. I wish we would have seen a little bit more out of the ones who chose not to participate this meeting, but just wanted to extend that bit of appreciation to you and your staff.
Commissioner Vice Chairman Johnson?
Just a quick question. So like on the proposed youth combo, I think it's $15. This would be people aged 12 to 17. It would be good for both hunting and fishing.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Johnson, that is correct. It would be a hunt fish. One of the things I failed to mention is that this would not eliminate the need for the hunter education.
Okay.
Hunter education would still be required. It would not be valid for hunting until a youth were to pass a suitable one.
That was my question, because I was concerned about a youth who just wanted to fish. He has to buy a combo license. Are you going to then require hunter's ed, or would it somehow be avoided? So that answered my question. Thank you.
And Brian, was it my understanding also that combination youth hunt license was the same price, resident or non-resident? Was that?
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. We are proposing that a non-resident youth would be the same fee as a resident youth. However, that would not change the non-resident tag fees, nor would it change the non-resident's eligibility for the youth hunts within Nevada.
Thank you. Any further questions from the commission? Hearing none, this is an action item. I'll take it out to public comment in Las Vegas. Public comment in Las Vegas.
No comments in Las Vegas, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. And public comment in Carson City. Come on up.
Mr. Chairman and members, Doug Martin, Chairman of the Carson City Wildlife Advisory Board. We did take this up to our group on Monday, and we applaud the department for providing additional information. We had one concern, and I think it was addressed a little bit here today, and that was making sure that the tag programs continue to get funded, such as the the stamp programs, the stamp programs continue to get funded. And I heard that today that they will, and it's just, I assume each one of those individual permits had an administrative cost, so perhaps there will be a reduction in that. That was our only concern, and as long as that's being addressed, we definitely support it. And at a personal note, I just turned 65 this year and just saw that with all of my stamps and all of it's $15. So, man, I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public comment in Carson City?
Rex Flowers speaking on behalf of myself. I hope you guys embrace it. I think this is a great concept, great idea. The only issues I have with it is when you look at that initial chart that's put up there for resident hunting, resident fishing, and combo accounts, number of people who bought those licenses. That represents 57% of all the licenses that are sold. And when you look at what the new fees are, your first thought is every one of them is going up. So when you look at that, it gives that look to it, that view. I would like to see those fees reduced a little bit. And I think those fees could be put back onto the Youth 1217 combo and the other class that they had in there, which was a specialty combo licenses. There's no reason those could not go up to $20 to offset and allow a little bit of a decrease in the others. $20 to recreate 365 days is really cheap. I mean, you just can't fathom how inexpensive that is. There's not a one of you or a member in the public that could go out on a movie date and just get in and see a movie and get out for $20, nor could you hit the golf course for $20. So I don't think an extra $5 is going to kill anybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Rex. Further public comment in Carson City? Come on up, Judy. Can you turn on your mic, please?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Judy Karen for the record. I attended our county game board meeting, and I am truly in full support of fee simplification. We have so many stamps. And I am going to bring one question that I did address to Mr. Wakeling and also at my county game board, and I'm going to bring to you. It concerns the resident senior citizens that are 65, like we just had someone speak to. If we do not have 5 years of consecutive residency prior to turning 65, our senior citizens will not be able to take advantage of our combination package. So my question is, that regulation has been on the books for over 20 years. Possibly that's outdated. We should look at it to make it more user-friendly for our residents in Nevada that have moved here maybe when they retired and only have 2 years. We don't have any limitations that I'm aware of that puts a senior citizen at 65 without 5 years of residency at a handicap when they're applying for our tags. We also don't have any restrictions when a non-resident moves to Nevada that their bonus points follow with them. We did change that years ago as a user-friendly, I guess you would say, activity or whatever that they followed it. But I just bring this to you for our senior citizens that are 65, that we look at possibly removing that restrictions of 5 years to take advantage. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Coming up, Paul.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Clark. We had a fairly nice discussion about this, and I think by and large our CAB was in support of this. The concern that was raised by the one dissenting opinion, which I documented to you, is that that person felt that the non-resident should always, the resident should always be given the break as far as increasing in license fees, and the non-residents should be charged that. And I realize it's a game of statistics, the number of non-residents or youth or other things in tickets, and you're trying to remain neutral, revenue neutral. But the point is that the optics are, as in some cases, the non-residents are getting a better deal in some of this than the residents, is what this person felt. And so that's just, thought I'd give you that piece of opinion. But overall, like I said, our CAB fully supported where we're headed with this. It's a great idea. It's well past its time. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Any further public comment in Carson City? Come on up, Fred.
Oh, thank you. Yes, for the record, Fred Volz. Looking at page 10 of 27 of the slideshow we've just seen, and looking at all of the license types, the one thing that seems to be missing is trapping. And I'm kind of wondering why that's the case. But speaking to the process that was gone through to come up with this document, it seems as though there's no input from Lauren Chase's focus groups that included non-licensed purchasers, the other part of the public. And we've been talking today about openness, transparency, and participation from all of the public, not a small segment of it. And it does show a bias on the surface by not doing that. So I would encourage the Commission to not encourage these types of studies going forward that are so segmented to one part of the public. There's a much larger public that's not being included here. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Any further public comment in Carson City? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the Commission for further discussion and a motion. Commissioner Drew.
Yeah, I'd just say that Ms. Karen contacted me with her concern on the senior license and the 5-year wait to be eligible for resident, and I think that has some merit, and I'll just share with the group what I told her. Having not seen the draft of the bill, and we probably won't before our next meeting, I would imagine that through this process we're probably going to open up that part of NRS, and so at that time it may be something to look at. I know the BDR's already been submitted, so I don't know that it's pertinent to our discussions today, but it is something that seems to make sense to me, and we may want some more information on down the road to see if it's something we could address as part of this process.
Commissioner Young.
Does anybody know what the logic is behind that 5-year wait for a senior? Is it snowbirds or some kind of fraud, or they think they're hunting in a couple different states, or what?
Maureen, can you answer that for us?
For the record, Maureen Hollinger, Nevada Department of Wildlife. I believe it was out of our last fee implementation back in 1993. We had a request for a pioneer license and administratively to determine who had lived a lifelong in Nevada and maintaining that when you have so many people coming and going. And as things tend to do in a legislative session, we ended up with a 5-year residency requirement for those people who are seniors that move to the state.
Commissioner Drew.
Maureen, just out of curiosity, what's the wait on being able to apply as a resident if I move to the state for big game? To go from non-resident to resident, is it 6 months? Is that what it is?
The regular residency requirement is 6 months for those that move to the state for hunting and fishing privileges.
So then there is quite the disparity when you look at eligibility for whether you're buying a resident or non-resident license versus whether you're applying for big game as a resident or non-resident.
I don't understand the question.
I'm just saying if I moved here from out of state in 6 months, I could apply as a resident for big game, but I'd still have 4.5 more years where I'd buy a non-resident license.
Correct. No.
You can be eligible for the senior license.
You wouldn't be eligible for the senior.
Unless you'd lived here 5 years.
Right. Thank you for the clarification.
Commissioner Hubbs.
So when you were talking about opening up the NRS with legislation, the 5-year requirement, does it stem from legislation or is that something that we've created ourselves here?
It's in legislation.
Further questions or comments from the commission? Commissioner McNinch.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Brian, I am having kids that are starting to show interest in this. I can tell you I just went through the process of helping them get what they needed. At least I thought. They actually ended up down at the department. And I'll say if Gail had not been available to help them down on Valley Road, we would have probably had ourselves a real mess. But anyway, the fact that this is simplifying, I've lived it firsthand. The complexities of trying to figure out what everybody needs and what we have to get. So I very much appreciate it. I'm all behind simplifying the combinations, the licenses that are needed, the fee structure. So I very much appreciate all that. And working for a government agency, I completely understand the challenges that go behind this. It's not just a function of taking some input and drafting it. I mean, everybody's got a concern. There's a lot going on with this, so I appreciate the work that you did. With that said, so I'm behind this. I know that we recently worked on some of our mining fees, our fees for some of the mining assessments. But Fred brings up a good point. There are other fees out there that aren't part of this consideration. Is there any intent to move into other arenas or to evaluate other fees at this time? Maybe I'm asking a question that's on the edge here, but
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner McNinch, there were any number of things that we've discussed as we've gone through this whole process, things that we could incorporate, including some aspects of trapping, or be it even my discussion with Ms. Karen on the issues surrounding eligibility. Our focus on this effort was to keep it as clean and as simple as we possibly could. We did not want to confuse or confound the overall issue. We believe that this is the biggest proportion of customers that routinely pay us a fee in order to participate in a wildlife recreation that they choose to. And so we tried to keep it as simple and as clean as we possibly could. That was our philosophy as we went through this. There's certainly a number of places that we've looked at that we think that there are additional opportunities, and we do plan to continue to pursue those into the future.
Further questions from the commission? Commissioner Allenberg.
Last time we discussed maybe that the potential of the election impacting your numbers. Are we still comfortable with your numbers being revenue neutral?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Allenberg, the numbers that we used factoring into our assessment here deal specifically with people who buy hunting and fishing licenses. And the election outcome probably won't influence the participation in hunting and angling unless you're no longer employed because of the election and you might want to go hunting or angling. But other than that, it's probably not going to influence that end of thing. The part that we don't have a really good ability to assess what the influence of the election might have is on the federal excise taxes end. And that's those federal grants that we're trying to match. And so we don't have any way of there's a lot of projections out there about what kind of an influence. We certainly saw an increase in the number of people that were buying firearms during the President Obama tenure. Now that there's a Republican in president-elect, there are theories as to whether or not that's going to influence it. But that's largely outside of the realm of our license fees, and it's largely conjecture at this point in time. I don't believe there's any good ways to truly model that. Our efforts at our modeling for the actual licenses, we still feel pretty confident with.
Commissioner Barnes.
Yeah, Brian, one question I have, for the youth, there's only a combo. And in order for them to get that combo, they have to take the hunter safety class?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Barnes, in order for the hunting aspect of it to be valid, they would have to take a hunter safety. So in other words, they could buy a $15 combination license. It would only be valid for fishing until they completed a hunter ed course, and at that point, it would be valid for both.
Thank you.
Further comments or questions? How about a motion?
Yeah, just keeping in mind that this is going to take legislation to implement. You'll kind of see that in the tone of my motion, but I would move to adopt a legislative platform in support of the department's license simplification proposal based on the information provided at this time.
I second that.
I have a motion by Commissioner Drew and a second by Commissioner Hubbs. Excuse me. Is everyone clear with the motion? I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimous.